So, hello everyone. This is Villasenor here from Ketogains, and today I'm interviewing Amy Berger, which we know from tweetnutrition.com. So, Amy, how are you? Thanks for coming here, being here with the Ketogains podcast.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. You're breaking up a little, so hopefully the audio will be okay. But I'm so thrilled to talk to you. I'm brand new to Ketogains, but here you are talking to me already.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, how did you got into nutrition, and then how did you got into low carb dieting or ketogenic diets in general?
Okay, well, nutritionist is not my first career. I've done a lot of other things. I was actually in the U.S. Air Force.
Wow.
Been a secretary. Yeah, I've done a lot of different things, and the way I got into nutrition myself was I've been chubby and overweight for a lot of my life, and I was overweight despite doing a ton of exercise. You know, I've run 2 marathons. I've always worked out. I was never afraid to get in the gym. I thought I was eating healthy. Now, when I was a kid, I ate a lot of junk, and I think my parents actually owned an ice cream store, and I think that really set me up for trouble now. The way I ate in my formative years, I think, has contributed to it being so difficult for me to lose weight and maintain a lean weight now. But anyway, as I got older in high school and college and after college, I exercised a ton. I ate lots of low fat, low calorie, and I just could not lose any weight. And it wasn't until I stumbled upon low carb that the weight started to budge. I read the Atkins book. This was back in the late 90s. And it was the first time that the weight ever came off. And I got to eat delicious food. I mean, I never felt like I was dieting. I could eat steak. I could eat cheese. I could eat butter, you know, all these delicious fatty meats that you think are completely off limits on other diets. And after having been successful in low carb myself, I decided to make a career of it. Like I said, I've tried a lot of other careers. I said to myself, you know, what's something that I think I can make a living at, but actually enjoy it and actually really do something I'm passionate about. So then I went for formal education in nutrition, and that was after I had already been low carbing for many years, and after I already knew some of the science. Then I got the background education. So I did it backwards, which was actually better because I already knew the science of low carb before I went into school. So I could ignore what they said about certain things, you know.
Okay, well, the topic of the interview, we would like to talk about fasting. So fasting is like the new, in fashion. Yeah, but recently there has been like, an influx of people doing fasting. You hear fasting here, fasting there, fasting everywhere. Lots of people are doing fasting without even knowing what it is about or how to do it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what fasting is, or the types of fasting that you know of, and when should someone do any type of fasting at all, if they should be doing it at all?
Right. So fasting is just what it sounds like. It is going without food. Some people will do a water only fast. Some people will include coffee or tea, but for the most part, you're going without solid food, and you're going mostly without calories, but you can have, some people will have something like 50 calories a day, which is really nothing. And that might come from a teaspoon or a tablespoon of, well, if it's a tablespoon, it'll be more than 50 calories, but a tablespoon of oil or cream in their coffee if they want to have a little something. But the main thing is that you go without eating. And what that does is it lets your body expend more energy toward other processes other than digestion. Digestion is a really energy intensive process. So when you have this constant influx of food, not just 3 times a day, but for most Americans, 5, 6, or 8 times a day, when you factor in snacks and just constantly eating all day, that takes a lot of energy for your body to do. And that's energy that's not able to go toward other things. So one of the things that fasting does, well, besides that, it can help lower blood sugar. It can help lower insulin because you're not eating anything. And all food will raise insulin to some extent, except fat really is just about negligible. It doesn't really move insulin that much when you eat plain isolated fat, but most people don't do that. Well, crazy people on ketogenic diets do that, but most people don't do that. So if you have type 2 diabetes, if you are insulin resistant, if you have tried a low carb diet, tried a ketogenic diet, and you still are struggling with really, really stubborn fat loss, sometimes fasting can help, because you might be reacting with high insulin even when you eat ketogenic foods. So it actually helps you to go with no food for some period of time. The biggest thing that people talk about with fasting is autophagy, which that's just a fancy way of saying self-eating. And what that is the body's way of clearing house. It's when it kind of breaks down and clears away old, worn out cellular debris and cellular tissue. But that's a good process. This is stuff that needs to be broken down. It's old junk. It's like spring cleaning for your body. And your body does that all the time, 24 hours a day. But when you're not having this constant influx of food multiple times a day, it does it more. You know, autophagy seems to be upregulated when you fast. So that's another benefit. And another benefit could, I mean, there's so many non-food and non-biology things about fasting, like you have more time because you're not cooking and you're not eating and you're not preparing meals and you're not shopping for food. So it frees up time for other things. And a lot of people find that their mental clarity is so strong on a fast because, again, your brain at that point is being fueled by ketones, and they feel this like huge burst of mental energy, mental clarity. Except I have to say that seems to, well, I think it would depend on the pattern of fasting. So you're asking about how people do it. People do it all kinds of ways. You could fast 24 hours once a week or twice a month. You could fast 48 or 72 hours once a month, or even once a quarter, 4 times a year. Some people might do a 4 or 5 day fast, like a very long fast. Some people just do that intermittent fasting with a compressed feeding window, which maybe you don't eat for 16 hours a day. And so that during an 8-hour period, that's when you consume food. And outside that time, you don't. Some people will even do the 5-2, which is 5 days a week. You eat your normal food, whatever you want, however much you want. And then 2 days out of the week, you fast. And I have to say, there's a book, I think, called The 5-2 Diet. And I haven't read it, but to me, I can see fasting very easily when you're already fat adapted. When you're already following a low carb or ketogenic diet, fasting is no big deal. You might get hungry, but you're not going to get hypoglycemic. You're not going to get irritable. You're not going to get angry. You're just going to feel good. You will get hungry, but you won't be uncomfortable. And so I don't even understand how the 5-2 works, because if I was eating the standard American diet, if I was eating a lot of carbs and a lot of junk, and then I tried to go even one day, or even probably halfway through that day, I'd have a headache, I'd be irritable. So I don't know how it works, but supposedly it does.
Yeah, people who usually follow that protocol, they practically do it with willpower. And as you say, it's not very comfortable. You're just like being in this roller coaster of hunger pangs, and being hungry all the time because, as you said before, low sugar, high sugar levels, blah, blah, blah. You're not really used to do it. So, okay, you already talked a big deal about fasting and what does it do. It actually does. So what are your thoughts on this? For example, we normally say in Ketogains that, or normally we ask people, why are you fasting? Because you see all these people, especially ladies, that, as you say, are freaking out about fasting. And it's like a contest to see how much hours you fasted. And if you fasted for 20 hours, you're practically better than someone who fasted just for 16 or for 14. Right. And then they think, or some people think, that if you fast for more hours, then you are burning more fat, or it's going to be better for weight loss. We tend to think that it's not necessarily going to be like that. Basically, in these cases, what may happen is, you probably are losing more body fat, or you're burning more fat because you're eating less. not really because of the time spent fasting, because if you actually ate over your energy requirements in 1 or 2 hours, you could probably also gain fat even on a fasting diet, right? So I don't know if your thoughts about this, if you agree, or would you like to expand on this, or say, Polly, no, you're just full of BS.
I would never say that Luis Villasenor is full of BS. That's for sure. I think, to be honest, I think it's a little bit of both. I think it is very hard for some people, not for everybody. It is hard for some people to eat a full day's worth of calories in 2 hours, or I mean, in 8 hours, you could do it easily. I mean, I could sit down with a jar of mayonnaise and have 5 days worth of calories in about 10 minutes if I wanted to. I don't recommend that, just in case anyone's thinking of trying that. So I think some people, not everybody, but some people probably do eat a lot less if they have a compressed feeding window. The people on Ketogains are, not all of them, but many of them are already very fit, very active, very lean. They have a lot of muscle mass. They have low body fat percentage. So I'm not talking about those people. We're talking about the other people, like type 2 diabetics that are still insulin resistant, still very overweight. I think for those people, the fasting is not just about the calorie reduction. I think there is something to be said for those people. In the longer they go with low insulin levels, the more of their stored body fat they're able to tap into, regardless of what they're eating and how much they're eating when they are eating. You know what I mean? I think the longer they keep those insulin levels low during a fast, the more of their stored body fat they will be forced to use. So even if, let's say, they have a 4-hour feeding window, even in that feeding window, if they eat a large number of calories, I think if they're spending the vast majority of the rest of the day fasted, they probably still will lose more fat. I don't know for sure, but that just seems right to me.
Yeah, it's very much, I think you're referring to what Dr. Fong states as a two-compartment model, right? Basically,
Yeah.
once your insulin levels are low, you're able to tap more into your own body fat stores. Or this is my laid down explanation of why we get fat, and it's basically because if you overeat on carbs and protein on some extent, basically your body just burns glucose and amino acids. And even if you have 1 or 2 grams of fat, it will be stored because that you have an abundance of the other two. So if you do a ketogenic diet, because you're taking the carbs out, the glucose out of the context, and then when you add up fasting as well, basically, then your body is primed to burn into fat burning mode. It's like perfectly working. So by adding fasting to the mix, you're gonna just make it better.
Oh, I mean, I'm glad you said what you said about even if you just have a little bit of carbohydrate with the fat, it will prompt the fat to be stored. People, there's kind of a lot of arguments now about de novo lipogenesis, right? Making new fat from carbohydrates. And there's some people will say the vast majority of adipose tissue doesn't come from de novo lipogenesis. It comes from storing dietary fat in the presence of eating carbohydrate at the same time. And I think that's true because I'm going to be like super controversial on this interview here, but I'm starting to understand why very, very low fat, high carbohydrate diets actually can result in fat loss. Now, I think you and I would both agree, and probably most of the people on Ketogains would agree, you will also lose a lot of lean mass. But let's just say, so let's call it weight loss now instead of fat loss, because very, very different, right? On a very low fat, higher carbohydrate diet, you can lose weight. And
of course,
I think it's because even if it's not just the calories though, like even if you are eating a high carb diet, if it's kind of like doing a carb refeed. If it's very, very low in fat, even if your blood glucose spikes up and even if your insulin spikes up, there's not enough fat coming in with the meal to be stored. So if you're eating all this glucose and your body's burning glucose, you're fine because you can't store any fat because there's no fat
Exactly.
Be stored. If all you're eating is straight starch or straight fruit, I don't think, obviously, like, I don't think that's the best way to eat, and I wouldn't eat that way, but I see how it works now.
That's basically the theory that why we get fat, basically on the standard American diet. When you combine very hard carbohydrate, which is what most people eat, with also high fat, let's say a classical American dish that would be pizza or a burger with fries. You're having all these carbohydrates and also all this fat. What happens is, okay, a spike in glucose, and then all this fat is going to be stored, especially if you are eating over your energy requirements. Then what happened with the classic, low fat, fat or craze or whatever, you had all these people eating very light foods, which were supposedly low in fat, but very high in carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. They're basically low fat, especially here in Mexico. Even you have yogurt, low fat this, low fat that. But as much as they are low fat, they may have 2 or 3 grams of fat. And then you have all these people, instead of eating one, they are eating 2 or 3 dishes like this a day, or they're eating a whole bag of cookies without regards, because they think that because it doesn't have any fat, it's not going to make them fat. But again, because they're overeating on carbohydrates, even if this cookie has only 2 grams of fat, it means that these 2 grams of fat are going to be directly stored as body fat. So that's
if you eat 10 of those cookies, you're at 20 grams of fat.
You are 20 grams of fat, and because your body is just burning glucose, those 20 grams of fat go straight to your hips. And that's from just one day. And then you have the next day you do the same. And then the next day you do the same and the same. And then you have been eating like this for 5 years, and you probably bought 100 pounds, And then you go to the gym and you do 2 hours of cardio on the stepmill or the treadmill or whatever, or Zumba, and you only burned glucose. You didn't burn any of your stored body fat.
Exactly. You're burning glucose, eating glucose. Fat never enters the picture.
Exactly.
I think you're exactly right. And it kind of took me a long time to actually acknowledge that the problem is not so much carbohydrate per se, it's the combination of the carbohydrate and the fat.
Exactly.
And I think I have to say, to be perfectly honest, there are cultures around the world that eat high carbohydrate diets now, and they're healthy and they're long-lived. Because everybody misconstrues this all the time. That doesn't mean that you can drink Mountain Dew soda and eat Pop-Tarts and cereal and sugar and crap and have a high carbohydrate crap diet and be healthy. We're talking about people who, through multiple generations, if anyone's familiar with Pottinger's Cats or the Weston Price Foundation, these people are not eating a high carb modern diet. They were through the centuries, through the millennia, getting proper sleep, not stressed out like we are in the modern world, proper circadian regulation, their hormones aren't out of whack, their thyroids aren't out of whack, and they're eating whole, nutrient-dense, unprocessed foods. So maybe they're eating parsnips and beets and sweet potatoes and yams and fruit. And it's so funny because I'm this ketogenic and low carb friendly nutritionist, and I often tell people to eat more carbohydrate, but I'm not telling them to eat bread and to eat pasta and eat cereal. I'm telling them to eat red peppers and eggplant and zucchini. So because I don't think people should be afraid of eating carrots. Maybe on a ketogenic diet, people can't, but that doesn't mean that every single person on the planet needs to never eat, I don't know, name a starchy vegetable that I haven't, rutabaga or something like that. That's madness. But that's why these cultures do okay, because they're not eating crap. They're not eating high carb crap. They're still eating whole foods that contain nutrients, they contain fiber. They're not combining them with soybean oil, with corn syrup. So I think that doesn't mean that I could eat that kind of diet. And I've blogged about this a million times. That doesn't mean that someone like me who grew up eating garbage, and now in my own opinion, I'm permanently compromised. I have to eat a low carb diet. I don't have a choice. You know, I mean, I do have a choice. If I wanted to be 400 pounds, I have a choice. But if I had been raised, and my mother and her mother and her mother had been raised on whole, you know, unprocessed, nutrient dense meats and vegetables and fruits, then I think the diet I would thrive on now would probably be very different.
Exactly. Yeah. Basically, so the too long didn't read of this part of the interview would be eat whole foods, basically, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Some people complain also about getting hungry, and hungry is not just a thing about volume, but as you know, it's also a thing about nutrition. Your body cannot tell you exactly which nutrient you're deficient in. So what it does is just send a hunger signal. When you are well nurtured, your body will actually send less hunger signals, right?
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. It's hard to overeat whole foods. It's very easy to consume thousands of calories in coconut oil and butter. And I've done this. I've gained weight in ketosis from doing that, from going way overboard on mayonnaise, way overboard on oils, because, well, I was still in ketosis, but you know what? I was eating hundreds, if not thousands, of extra calories. So it's when you eat whole, actual, real foods, like you said, chicken, beef, a whole piece of something that's not isolated fractions of things. It's hard to overeat. And I would say, and I could be wrong, if you do overeat, maybe you're going to gain, maybe you won't gain weight, but if you do, you're probably going to gain a lot less than you would have if you had overeaten on the isolated fractions of food.
Exactly.
I don't know if you've heard of Jamie Scott. He's a nutritionist in New Zealand. He didn't invent this, but he's a big proponent of it. The protein leverage hypothesis is a theory, because you were saying before how your body will be hungry until it gets the nutrients it needs, whether that's chromium or zinc. It's until it gets the micronutrients it needs. Well, the protein leverage hypothesis says that humans will eat and eat and eat until we've reached the protein threshold that we need. Now, most people, thank goodness, on Ketogains, it's like a haven in the sea of craziness, because people on Ketogains eat enough protein. I mean, that's the main tenet, is like eat enough protein. But for the people that aren't, and especially the people on a low-fat diet, and especially the women in general do not eat anywhere near enough protein. I'm talking women on a regular diet, not Ketogains. So let's say you're eating, you know, your low-fat yogurt and your low-fat cookies and your low-fat crackers and your low-fat bread with your low-fat, you know, whatever spread on it. You will continue to be hungry and eat and eat and eat until you get the protein that your body needs. But because you're eating foods that are so low in protein, you're going to eat a ton of them. So that's why you can sit down and eat an entire box of cereal or an entire box of crackers, and the only thing that stops you is you actually feel physically like you're about to explode. You are so full and so uncomfortable. You still probably haven't even met your protein threshold, but you're stopping because you're actually sick. And you'll find you're sick, and an hour later you'll be hungry again. And it could be the blood sugar crash, or it could be the protein. But I think the protein leverage hypothesis is key, because I know it. If I sit down to a meal and I eat a big steak or a big pork chop, I'm stuffed and I'm good for hours. You know, I'm not looking for any more food. So they even say, when you get snacky, when you feel like you want something but you shouldn't be snacky, like maybe you just ate a little while ago, you should ask yourself if you're hungry enough for a pork chop and broccoli. And if the answer is no, you're not actually hungry. You're just bored, or you're tired, or you're depressed.
Or thirsty, or whatever.
Like if you want a cupcake, you're hungry for a cupcake, but you're not hungry for steak or chicken, then you're not actually hungry. You just want something sweet. And that's okay. Like, I'm not saying that's wrong. It's not sinful. It doesn't make you a bad person, but just don't confuse actual physical hunger and a need for nutrients and a need for protein with being hungry for cookies.
Well, actually, I love that hypothesis. It's very in line with what I said before about the micronutrient deficiency. Well, yeah, that
Right.
you also have a macronutrient deficiency, as you said. So I want to go to the next topic, which is who should be doing a 24-hour fast, or who should be doing probably 14 hours of fasting, or 16 or 12, or not fasting at all. And my favorite and first question I always ask people is, why are you fasting? Explain to me what fasting is, what you are trying to achieve. And if they don't, or they cannot tell me in their own words, how is fasting going to help them, my suggestion would be, do not fast, because you're just following a hype.
I feel like I'm saying this every time I start talking to you, but I could not agree more. You're exactly right. And this is why people who know me from my blog or from online, I am so happy that I found Ketogains, and I found you, and I found Tyler, because you're just so logical and you speak sense, and there's so much craziness and so much BS out there. It's so nice to hear someone say, why do you want to fast? What is your goal? What are you looking to accomplish? Because maybe fasting is good for that, maybe it's not. So God, it's just so nice to talk to someone that isn't crazy. So I do the same thing. I say, what are you trying to accomplish? Because again, for someone who's still overweight and the weight is not budging the way they want it to on a low carb diet or on a ketogenic diet, then fasting is great. Add some fasting. People that maybe still have some brain fog, or maybe, I don't know what, I don't even know if hypoglycemia, I don't think I would recommend fasting for that, but people that really maybe have a hard time focusing, who want the mental sharpness, they might want to do some fasting. I think some people just enjoy doing a fasted workout. They find that they, nobody likes to exercise on a full stomach, but I don't think that means those people need to do a 16/8 intermittent fast, or like a 1 hour, 2 hour feeding window. I just think they could wake up in the morning, not eat breakfast, go to the gym, and just eat when they get home. That's still doing a fasted workout. But I think anyone who's underweight probably shouldn't fast. Women with hormonal imbalances, depending on what they are, I would not recommend that they fast. People that haven't already, so speaking in terms of a low carb or a ketogenic diet, not like regular American dieters or Mexican dieters, people that haven't already mastered and adapted to a low carb diet, I don't think they should fast. Like, learn how to walk before you run. Learn the rules of the game before you start breaking the rules.
I agree completely. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what can I, like, people, and Rob Wolf says this all the time. People will ask him, well, should I do bulletproof coffee? Should I do this? Should I get the blue blocking glasses? Should I, do all these hacks? And meanwhile, they're still eating bread, they're still eating cheesecake. So why don't you not worry about the crazy minutia when you haven't even gotten the big principles down yet?
Yeah, perfectly makes sense. It's very much, I'm not an engineer, I'm a marketeer. But this is something I took from my brother, who is actually an engineer. He does, computer things, which are too complicated for me and probably for you as well.
Me too, for sure. Yeah.
But
like I said, I'm an analog girl in a digital world.
Happens. Everybody's digital right now. But engineers have this, sort of like diagram when there's troubleshooting with clients or with appliances or whatever. So the first thing when an equipment is failing, you have to go with the simple, and then you go to the complex. And usually when something is failing, for example, an electric appliance, the first thing you have to do is check if the power is on, right, or if it's connected. You have people calling in call centers and my computer is not working or my internet is not working. And then the first question they have to ask is, are you sure the internet is connected or the broadband is, turned on, blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah.
90% of the time, it happens that people forgot to turn out on the internet, and that's why it's not working. The same happens with dieting. We have people saying, my ketones are not high enough, I'm losing weight. I'm not losing weight, and then they get the response, increase your fat, eat more fat. It's like, wait. How many calories are you supposed to eat, and how many calories are you eating? And I know it's
Yeah.
not all about calories, but this is the simplest thing that people can first look. Is okay, you have to eat, I don't know, 2,000 calories, let's say, just that random number, and you are eating 3,000. Well, there's no way you're going to be losing weight at that much calories
Right.
for a start. But I don't want to count calories, so that's what people say, or I don't have to. Okay, why don't we try for 2 weeks or 3 weeks with correct macros? And then if that doesn't work, we can start looking at different things and more complex things. Because the easiest thing is just control, is what you have control. And what you have control is what you eat.
We were talking about who should fast, who should not
Yeah,
fast. Or I think part of the reason everybody wants to fast regardless is they think they have to. Somewhere along the line, it became a thing within the low carb community and the keto community that you have to fast, and you don't. Fasting is one strategy out of many that can work.
exactly.
And if you don't want to fast, don't fast. If you want to fast, fast. Like some people, this. Do you have to do CrossFit? No. CrossFit is one way to work out. It's not the only way. Fasting
Exactly.
is not the only way to lower your insulin. Fasting is not the only way to eat fewer calories. I mean, that's why I think it becomes such a big thing. People think they have to, and they don't. I mean, clearly, not everyone who has ever lost weight or, gained muscle mass or felt well or lived a long life, because fasting is becoming very big in the longevity community now. People think, oh, I want to, because fasting extends life in mice and fruit flies, then if I fast forever and ever and I never eat, I'm going to live till 100 in perfect health. And I think it's just, there are literally billions of people in the world and billions of people in the past who have lived long, healthy, well, robust lives, and they have not fasted.
Exactly.
Maybe they fast for like a religious holiday once or twice a year, but they weren't thinking every single day, I literally am only allowed to eat during a 4-hour period or an 8-hour period, and I have to go to the gym and I have to do it fasted. Like, no, you don't. These are all just like levers that you can press up and down and modulate that could help you, but you don't have to do them all, and you don't have to do them all the time for the rest of your life.
I think very much in line with what you said is, for example, if you are very lean and if you want to gain muscle, probably your best bet is not to fast. And if you are very overweight, probably you can do very well with just 2 meals. Who should fast? People who have already mastered ketogenic diets, that have no issues with hunger probably, and who just want to add another layer to their ketogenic lifestyle without issues.
I would say too, like what I wrote about in my blog, I find this more with women, and there's probably men who do it too, but it's mostly women. If you're already under eating, especially in relation to how much you're exercising, you do not need to fast, and you should not fast. The problem with that is, though, that most of those women don't know that they're under eating.
Oh yeah.
They're not aware. They're basically starving themselves. I mean, let's call it what is. They're starving themselves. They just don't realize it. They don't mean to. They think it's normal to eat this teeny tiny amount of food, and then they wonder why they lose their period and why their hair falls out and why they're tired, and they don't even realize that they've actually starved themselves unintentionally.
Exactly.
And those people did not fast.
Well, you basically said it. And then in regards to, we're going to jump a little bit to another topic, which goes in hand a little bit with what you just said, which is, for example, protein. What is your take on also this the fear of protein that is very prevalent on low carb communities.
Right. I stand by that 100%. Most women do not eat enough protein. And it's funny because in the dieting world, and it applies to the low carb kind of world too, there's so much talk about fat and so much talk about carbs. Nobody's talking about protein, right? I think it's very hard to define what is enough protein, right? The fear of protein, of too much, quote unquote, too much protein, comes again from that longevity community, because they think the protein restriction is part of the benefit of fasting comes not just from reducing insulin, but from reducing protein and reducing mTOR. And I'll get to this huge tangent about mTORs, and like if the listeners and viewers don't really know what mTOR is, it's kind of this signaling pathway that signals that you are fed. And insulin tells the body that you're fed, and it's a building and growing phase based on carbohydrate and a little bit of protein. mTOR is kind of a pathway that is regulated by protein. So long story short, people think that if you eat a lot of protein, it basically makes your run hot and fast and in a short time, like you're going to die sooner because you're burning all this energy and all this protein. Whereas if you eat very, very little protein and a lot of fat, you're not signaling those pathways. And like, I get it and I respect that, because, people like Ron Rosedale and Norga Gaudas, those are the two proponents I know that are those for restricting protein. And Jimmy Moore does it to an extent. And I respect all of those people. I mean, all of those people know a great deal about all of this. So I can't say they're wrong. I would never say Ron Rosedale is wrong or Norga Gaudas is wrong. But it really does disturb me when I get clients that are eating 40, 50, or 60 grams of protein. And I think that's nowhere near enough for a grown adult human being. Diane Sanfilippo from Practical Paleo and Balanced Bites, she would get clients. She's talked about this on her podcast. They would give her their food log for the day, and she would say, "Okay, this looks like a good snack for a child, versus like what a grown adult should be eating for the day." So, I honestly don't know what to make of the protein thing, right? And the other reason people are scared of protein is, like we said at the beginning, the gluconeogenesis. They think that if you eat chicken, it is the equivalent of eating a snack cake with frosting on. And it's just not. I think it varies. I do think people's sensitivity to the protein can vary. Like, I guess it's Marty Kendall and R.D. Dykman. People probably know these names from the various Facebook groups. These people that have family members with type 1 diabetes, they do really have to manage the insulin in response to protein. But I think in a well-regulated body, in somebody whose body responds appropriately to protein does not turn into sugar. That's a very complicated process. Gluconeogenesis doesn't happen just because. It happens when it needs to. Protein doesn't automatically become sugar. Amino acids can be converted into glucose when the body needs glucose.
Exactly.
So I just think this is a bad way to go, the really low protein, because you will break down body mass. I don't see how you can't. And I've read Dr. Fung's stuff. I respect the heck out of Dr. Fung, but I don't see how you couldn't be breaking down some amount of lean tissue when you're eating so little protein. I don't understand at all. I mean, I'm the first person to say I don't understand all of this, but I don't get it. But that's why they're afraid of protein, right? Gluconeogenesis and the longevity.
Exactly. Well, here's my thoughts on this regard, and this would be basically, again, context. In regards to longevity, you're already doing a ketogenic diet, which also mimics or gives you lots of the benefits of fasting. So you're not going to get more benefits from fasting than from doing a ketogenic diet by eating less protein than that certain amount. There's a balance in all things. And there's also the law of diminishing returns. what is the purpose of living to 100 years if you're going to be wheelchair bound? Wouldn't you rather live to probably 95 and be fully capable of living your life fully and do everything by yourself, go on a walk and whatever, instead of being on a wheelchair?
Yes.
That's
No,
what
I'm so glad you said that. I agree 100% again, because even if you live longer, and we don't know how much it's going to be, whatever it is in a fruit fly or a mouse or a dog, we don't know what that's going to translate to in humans, but we do know that those extra years will be at the end of your life,
exactly.
when you're probably debilitated, all your friends are dead. You're not going to be having those extra years when you're 25 and partying it up and having fun. Like, I don't see the point. Why live to 110? Like, just why?
That's a valid point. But what I also want to bring up, and you talked about mTOR, like that is the signaling. Some people don't know that there are various ways to actually make the signal mTOR. It's not just protein. Basically, when you are young, we have first hormones, but as we age, hormones get downregulated. So, and then another way to signal mTOR is by strength training. So you have two ways that some people, one will lose over time, which is hormones, and the second one, which is strength training. Some people will not do it. And then the only thing that we have left is adequate protein ingestion. So what does it have to do? Well, it has to do when you have people who are over 30 who have already their hormones going downwards naturally. Then they don't want to strength train because they don't want to become bodybuilders. So the only option they have to actually maintain lean mass is adequate protein ingestion, because people think that the muscle they have now, they're going to keep all through their lifetime, and it's not true. Once you lose body mass, it's very hard to actually regain it, just as it is hard to gain it in the first place. You can gain so much when you're young by strength training and by eating and by hormones, but once you're over 30, 35, you're going to be losing a little bit over time as you age, and it's a natural process that is called sarcopenia, for those that don't know about it. And the only way you can make sarcopenia slower, or probably practically stop it in a way, is by adding strength training and adequate protein ingestion.
I think part of this protein thing also comes from just like people think they have to fast, they think they have to be on what I call a medically therapeutic ketogenic diet. They think they have to have the ratios. I have to be 80% fat or 70% fat or more. And that forces them into this very narrow protein intake when, like Ketogains says, they should be focused on absolute grams, because you can absolutely be ketogenic eating 60% protein, which maybe, 60% fat, rather than like 70 or 80% fat. You could be 55 to 60% fat, and that leaves you that much more room for 25 or 30% protein. And I know that sounds crazy to people, like 30% protein. But depending on your total caloric needs, 30% protein might be exactly where you need to be. And maybe maybe that'll be 90 grams, maybe it'll be 100 grams. It's sure as heck not going to be 50 grams of protein. I mean, I think I should be clear, just like with the fasting, there are people who probably could benefit, or not benefit, but who need to restrict protein intake. And that could be somebody with a neurological condition who really does need to be in a very, very high state of ketosis. And some don't, but some do. Or, cancer patients, for them, they probably do want to limit the protein.
Exactly.
There are cases, but it's like you said, context. Because for young, healthy, athletic, bodybuilding types, or not even just bodybuilding, just people that want to be well, want to have good energy, want to look good, have a good physique, but not necessarily be a bodybuilder, we're not going to get that on 60 grams of protein a day. We're just not,
Exactly. So, Amy, I think we're going to end the interview right now. It's a lot of information for the listeners and viewers to digest. So where can they find more about you, or where can they follow you or read your blog?
Right. My website is tuitnutrition.com. That's TUIT nutrition.com. And I'm pretty active on Twitter. My handle is tuitnutrition. So it's at TUIT nutrition. And I am a little more active on Facebook now than I used to be, but that's where to find me. And I have a book coming out actually in April 2017. I wrote a book about using a ketogenic diet for Alzheimer's disease. So
Incredible.
yeah, and other than that, Luis, I just want to say again, gracias, mi amigo. I am so glad that I found Ketogains. Because like I said, I am one of these people that I've gained weight being in ketosis from eating too much fat, and I have been brainwashed by just eat as much fat as you want because it won't spike insulin, and it doesn't matter how much fat you eat. And it's I came to Ketogains because I needed help. I needed to make some changes, and I'm still making them. I have a little bit of weight to lose now, but at least I feel like I've found something that is sensible and that's going to work. So now it's just a question of me actually sticking to it.
Well, why don't you join our boot camps? We're just getting started this week, so if you want, you're in any of them.
I might get in on the next one. I don't think I'm ready for the workouts yet.
Okay. When you're ready, you're welcome. You just have to send us a PM and that's it. Okay, Amy. So again, thank you so much for being here. We really like how you write and how you bring sense to, a lot of all this craziness out there. So again, thank you so much for being here with us. And see you later. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Bye, everyone.